Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into exactly why tropical rainforests matter, specifically by looking at what they output. You and I actually interact with the products of these ecosystems way more frequently than we realize, all while literally relying on them for our very survival.
So, why should tropical rainforests matter to us? It's a massive question, right? But to really answer it, we've got to look at the stark difference between what we physically take from the forest and the kind of invisible work it does for us in the background.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to define outputs, look at tangible goods, explore invisible services, compare goods versus services, and finally wrap up with the sustainability balance.
Starting off with Section 1, Defining Outputs. What exactly are we getting?
First up, we have goods. When we talk about goods, we mean the physical, tangible items we actually take from the forest. These are products you can literally hold in your hands, directly used by people, and very often they're locally produced or harvested right there in the environment.
On the flip side, we've got services. Services are basically the invisible jobs the forest performs, jobs that honestly hold our entire global environment together. Think of a service as the unique role an ecosystem naturally plays. And unlike a physical good that you might, say, load onto a truck, an ecological service usually has this massive, overarching global effect.
Let's move into Section 2, Tangible Goods, the physical harvest.
Okay, so you probably interact with rainforest goods every single day without even realizing it. I mean, think about the vanilla, the cocoa, and the cane sugar sitting in your pantry, or even just your morning cup of coffee. But it goes way, way beyond just the food we eat. We extract structural materials from the forest, things like heavy mahogany and rosewood, fibers like rattan, and absolutely vital medicines. For instance, quinine, which is a major anti-malaria treatment, comes straight from the rainforest. But get this, here's a really staggering fact. 70% of plants with proven anti-cancer properties are only found in tropical rainforests. Isn't that wild? A really perfect example of this physical extraction in action is rubber tapping. What happens is the bark of the rubber tree is incredibly carefully removed so that this bright white rubber sap can just seep out and flow directly from the tree trunk. The sap just flows down around the tree in a spiral and eventually collects right there in a little metal bowl. Now, this is the ultimate example of a good. It's a highly local, totally physical resource extracted directly from the environment to make everyday products we all use. We're talking car tires, chewing gum, shower mats. It is a direct, hands-on physical extraction.
All right, moving on to Section 3, Invisible Services, the Earth's machinery.
Now, the forest acts as this massive regulating machine. It provides vital ecological services that go far beyond just, sitting there. It's doing critical jobs, things like groundwater recharge, landslide control, and preventing soil erosion. It's actively, constantly regulating both the local and the global climate.
Perhaps one of its absolutely most crucial global jobs is acting as the lungs of the planet. Through photosynthesis, the rainforest basically becomes a massive carbon sink. The whole mechanism is pretty straightforward, but it's literally essential for human survival. Step 1. The trees absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Step 2, that carbon gets safely locked away within the massive biomass of the forest. And Step 3, fresh oxygen is released back out into the air. And if we zoom into a more local or regional scale, the actual physical structure of the forest provides another critical service, which is flood control. The broad leaves of the rainforest canopy intercept heavy rainfall. This drastically reduces flood risks by actually catching the rainwater and slowing down how fast it hits and soaks into the ground. It's just this entirely natural, invisible flood defense system.
That brings us to Section 4, Goods versus Services, the core difference. So, the really crucial point here is the stark contrast between the two. Remember, goods are physical items, they're tangible products, and they are locally produced and extracted. Services, on the other hand, are the unique ecological roles the forest plays. They are completely invisible functions, but they carry a massive, life-sustaining global environmental effect. Think of it this way. You consume a good, but you rely on a service. Picture a localized agricultural extraction site, a place where land has been cleared for a specific crop to maximize physical goods. Now, compare that to a vast, untouched canopy representing those global atmospheric services. That intact forest is out there actively sequestering carbon and managing our global water cycles every single second.
And finally, Section 5, the Sustainability Balancing Act.
Now, to get those tangible goods we talked about earlier, the wood, the minerals, the land for farming, we often have to engage in resource exploitation. By definition, this just means using and benefiting from natural resources to improve people's quality of life. And hey, economic development is really important. But the catch is that exploitation often replaces a living forest ecosystem with highly destructive land uses, like open-pit mines or massive, sprawling agricultural plantations.
Directly opposing this exploitation is conservation. Conservation is the strict preservation and protection of the natural environment and its ecosystems. The primary goal here is keeping the whole ecosystem totally intact, so those vital, invisible services, like our global carbon sink and our flood regulation, can just keep functioning without human interference.
So, as you can probably guess, this creates a major central conflict. Prioritizing resource exploitation allows us to harvest local goods and develop growing economies, sure. But clearing the rainforest completely destroys its ability to act as a carbon sink, which sends vast amounts of stored carbon right back into the atmosphere. On the other hand, strict conservation prioritizes those essential global services, but it significantly limits the mass extraction that local populations might really need or desire for their own economic growth.
So what's the solution? Well, the only truly viable answer lies in sustainable development. This is the really careful practice of balancing resource exploitation for development with the absolutely necessary conservation of the rainforests. It's all about finding a way to extract goods, kind of like that incredibly deliberate, non-destructive rubber tapping we looked at earlier, without destroying the ecosystem's overall ability to provide those vital invisible services. It requires really smart, thoughtful management so the forest remains intact, but can still provide value to the people living there.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. When you weigh the tangible, everyday products sitting right there in your pantry against the massive, invisible systems that literally keep our entire planet breathing, how do you rank the true value of the rainforest? Really understanding the stark difference between a local good and a global service is the very first step to protecting our shared future. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.